You also have a whole other side to yourself and your career that you ventured into, coaching and mentoring. It's a business in its own outside of your job. So can you talk a little bit about the logistics there, establishing yourself as an LLC? What resources were given to you to help you kind of launch this side of your career? What tools do you still use today? Did you ever seek the advice of a coach?
Oh goodness, yes. Okay, many questions, and it's a great subject. No, so I'll try to work my way backwards. Yes, I'm working with two coaches right now. I've been working with coaches on and off for a long time, which is partly how I came to understand this particular modality, which is not teaching, it's not therapy. There's kind of a spectrum between mentorship and coaching and consulting that people can kind of float along that spectrum, but it's what I'm most interested in is, well, I should back up and say my coaching work falls into two categories. So one is more specifically directed at supporting musicians through this tenure process, where there is a lot of, I'm imparting knowledge and skills, and part of it is kind of more like teaching. And there's a component to it, which is a lot oriented towards mindset, towards our internal landscape, towards understanding how we can be in the world in a more optimal way, in a way that serves us, that feels more in alignment with kind of how we want to be. So the other piece of my coaching business is one-on-one coaching work, and that I do with both musicians and non-musicians. And that is less about teaching, and it's more about what we would call thought partnership. It's about, my role is to ask the kinds of questions that helps my client think more clearly, think more courageously, break through some internal narratives that we all have about what is and isn't possible, what we should and shouldn't be doing, that kind of thing. So what I realized a number of years ago is that I have been doing work that is very much along these lines for quite some time without really naming it, without kind of understanding that that's what I was doing, and that work is some of the most gratifying and inspiring work that I do. And I began to realize that work, in many ways, I feel like is able to have a greater impact on the people whom I'm in relationship with than teaching the flute, for example. And all power to great flute teachers out there. And I love teaching the flute, and it's an incredibly important, obviously, role to fill. But for me, in terms of my own impact, I began to feel really strongly that my impact is greatest in this other space, which is this coaching space. As far as setting up an LLC and all of that, boy, just the nuts and bolts of that, I've had a little bit of help and advice about, how to and why to, but a lot of it is just making sure that I'm keeping my business kind of clean and in integrity. I'm not blurring my coaching work from my work with the Boston Symphony and all of that. So I keep it really nice in these nice separate buckets. But that's definitely been a learning process for me, the business side of things, for sure, which is why I have a business coach.
There you go.
Yeah.
You feel like your flute teaching has kind of taken, at least at the very moment, a little bit of a backseat to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I have intentionally, I have only so many hours in the day, and want to make sure that I'm, again, kind of putting my energy where I think it serves the most people with the most impact. And so I closed my private teaching studio at the end of 2020, and I'm stepping away from my teaching duties at New England Conservatory as well. So all of my work at this point that isn't performance is in this other coaching space. So at the moment, I don't believe I have any more flute classes, master classes, or lessons on the calendar. And I think the last master class that I offered I was a guest of my teacher, Jim Walker, for
yeah.
his studio. Yeah. And so that was an absolute joy. It felt like a very full circle kind of moment that there was my teacher and there I was. And I was thinking, wow, this is maybe my last, or it's certainly the last masterclass I'll do in the foreseeable future. So
Right.
it's a beautiful
way to kind
moment.
of close that chapter. Yeah.
You bet.